Hi, thanks for joining us in the European Athletics podcast. Wow, what a week of athletics we've just had. 3 Diamond Leagues and a whole load of World Athletics Continental Tour events going on alongside that. In this episode, first I'm going to catch up with Cathal Dennehy. We're going to try and pick apart what's happened from a European perspective over the last week and what that might mean for medal potential in Budapest. I then had the chance to catch up with Ciara Mageean, the Irish 1500 metre runner, who's had a phenomenal 12 months, breaking national records and picking up a silver at last year's European Outdoor Championships. But while I'm here, I want to take a moment to signpost you towards 2 streamed events this week that European Athletics are going to be hosting with English commentary. The first of those happens on Wednesday night. It's the Raiffeisen Open in Eisenstadt, Austria. It's a World Athletics Continental Tour bronze event. And the athletes to watch out in that for me are PJ Austin, the American, will go in the 100 metres. He's done 9.89 this season. Khalifa Rosser goes in the men's 400 hurdles. European interest in the men's high jump. Vernon Turner, the American, could be a really strong test for Bohan Bondarenko. And on the women's side, one race I'm looking forward to is the 400. It's going to feature a local athlete, the Austrian Suzanne Gogol-Volley. She's been running personal bests almost every time she competes, and she's going to be pushed all the way by Jamaica's Stacey Ann Williams and the American Kaylin White. And finally, when we look at the women's javelin, it could be interesting from a European perspective. The German athlete Christine Husong and Austria's Victoria Hudson will go in that. And we fast forward a few days, Saturday night, Saturday the 29th, is going to see another bronze level event. This time it's the True Athletes Classic in Leverkusen, Germany. And the athletes to look out there for me from the preliminary start lists are Candelita Berda, silver medalist from the European Championships. He goes in the pole vault. Liam Meyer, the steeplechase specialist, another European medalist, will go in the 1500. Alistair Chambers of Great Britain and Northern Ireland going in the hurdles. And Jamaica's Johan Blake is down for the men's 100. So keep an eye on the European Athletics website for all the live results from both of those meetings on Wednesday and Saturday. And they'll have the link for the streams. But for now, let's catch up with Cathal and Ciara. Thanks very much, Cathal Dennehy, joining me, European Athletics journalist. Well, no, freelance journalist, but you do a lot of writing for European Athletics as well. Irish 800 metre runner, is that how we introduce you?
Retired, washed up, has been, never was, Anna.
Well, not competing in the... So we're here to talk about European athletes and what they might do in Budapest. Are you doing the media race?
I am. If I don't get injured in the next month, which is a high probability, I'll be there with bells on.
And are you going to get a medal?
I don't know. The standard's gone way up in recent years. There's real athletes coming into this thing now with the likes of Kyle Merber and Guillaume Laurent. It's not fair anymore, so...
It isn't fair, but I think European Athletics will be rooting for you to fly the flag.
Proper. I'll do my best.
But thanks. I want to take a moment to look at what European performances we've seen in the last week that kind of make us think those guys are now medal potentials for Budapest. We've got a lot of favourites in Europe. You look at Jakob Ingebrigtsen, look at the men's discus, at Christian Che, Daniel Stoll, Miklos Alekna. There's some events that are not wrapped up, but I'm more interested, I guess, in what's happened this week. We've had 3 Diamond Leagues, Silesia, Monaco, London, who sort of jumped out to us that we think is a person we should be paying attention for to a month out from Budapest. So I want to go sprints, endurance, field. I'm going to go first with the British sprinters because I'm biased. I think Zarnell Hughes, 2 British records this season and his 3rd place in London. Like, it didn't look very good until the times came up for everybody, and you're suddenly like, wow, if he can do that, and he's got the range over 1 and 2, I think he could get a medal in the 1. And Dina Asher-Smith as well, 2nd in London on Sunday. She's rounding into form. I think those 2 could be on for a medal.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. It's funny, one of my friends was just saying to me, it's amazing. I think he was kind of surprised that people who don't follow British athletics as closely, how long the British men's sprint records were standing for. It was like, wow, how with the depth and the great sprinters Britain has had over the last few decades, has those records not been broken? But yeah, Jarnell looks, that 100 metres in New York was so impressive. And it's weird, the 100 metres, I think Noah Lyles is kind of out there a bit on his own. And then I know you have a slew of guys in the mid 19 seconds kind of coming up behind them. But the 100 metres is still very open. You look at like Fred Curley's not invincible, even though he's very strong, and Ferdinand Omanyala. But it's a lot of guys beating each other week in, week out on the circuit. And maybe this is the year that a Brit will get back on the top of the podium of the world champs. Because that, I think, to me, that was possibly the most impressive 100 meters we've seen so far this year was Chanel.
No, for sure. Or anything else sprint wise?
Natalia Kaczmarek, I suppose that was so impressive. I think her previous PB, we talked about this, was in Silesia as well, and she always rises to the occasion on home turf. But the fact she, I think everyone knew she's on the rise and probably going to go under 50 seconds, and she did that. But to get down to 49.4 is different territory. And I think even when she had done that in Silesia, we kind of thought, okay, she's done it on home turf again. Can she do it out in the circuit? But then she goes to Monaco and comes from behind and beats a world-class field. And I think then everyone was like, okay, Kaczmarek has arrived as a kind of a global medal contender. It's not just European anymore. I think she can really get down towards us, because I'm sure, like all athletes, she's not planning to peak a month out from Budapest. And I think she will certainly be looking at it going, I can shave off another few tenths before the big dance in Budapest.
And that's why I think it's a cool week to look at, because people are starting to peak. There's a lot of fast times we've had out from April, May, in some of the sprint events particularly. And I'm kind of like, right, who's slotting themselves into that kind of top 5 on the world lead now? And Kaczmarek's definitely one of those. Of course, another European, Rashida Adeleke is above Kaczmarek on the time list. And I'm sure she's going to be fine. But, it's kind of, you can't ignore the Polish woman winning 2 Diamond Leagues this week. When you look at that sort of championship performance, I think that could be quite special.
I'll put on my biased Irish hat there though and say I still think Rashida, is probably in line perhaps to be the leading European at the World Championships, purely because obviously she's run the 49.2, ranks her 4th in the world at the moment, but she obviously beat number 3 in the world, Britton Wilson, convincingly to win that NCAA title last month. And that was 4 weeks ago. Rashida said, I was talking to her today, she said she took a quick break, building back up again for Budapest, very much training through these Diamond Leagues. I suppose all athletes to an extent are, but I think we'll still see a kind of a more of an NCAA Rashida Adeleke, down the low 49 seconds rather than a Monaco time Rashida Adeleke, which was a 49.99 she ran, shaking off the jet lag. So she said she's gone back over to Texas for the next few weeks after our nationals next weekend, and I think we'll be seeing a fitter and a sharper and a better rested Rashida come the World Champs in Budapest.
Oh, I'll mark my card and then come and see how you've done.
I'm biased though, so I can't be trusted.
Well, I'm biased to the Brits as well. Right, over to the best discipline, endurance. Did anything catch your eye this week?
There was a lot. Will I put on my Irish hat again? Ciara Mageean, I suppose, just to speak about that as the resident Irishman here. That was so impressive to finish, second to Faith Kipyegon, who obviously is in a world of her own. And, assuming she doesn't get injured or ill, is going to win whatever she wants to win at the World Championships, you'd have to imagine. But I think, I think everyone was just so far behind Faith Kipyegon, and the TV director didn't show us too much of the battle behind that. It was only, I think, minutes after the race, and everyone was looking through the results going, oh wow, this is like astonishing times going back here with the national records falling all over the place. And for Ciara to have run the 5th fastest of all time over the mile, and I know the women's mile isn't run as often as the men's, but it's still, I think it converts to 3:55 or 3:56, and that puts her right in there. And when you consider that Ethiopia's Gudaf Tsegay and Sifan Hassan likely probably going towards longer distances in Budapest, perhaps scared away by Faith Kipyegon, having a lock on that gold medal. I think it really opens up the medals in Budapest for someone like Ciara, for people like Nikki Hills, for Jess Hall of Australia, and there's Mishesha of Ethiopia as well. There's probably about 6 or 7 athletes in there who could win, you would say, the bronze and silver in Budapest, and I think Ciara is one of them. So I think from an Irish perspective, that was very exciting.
No, and I think that's fair enough. I think we've got Laura Muir is still top of the European rankings, and she's right out there in the world. And she's someone that should be in that conversation as well. But Ciara, she beat a lot of good people in Monaco as well. You say it's not a commonly run distance, but there was a high quality field. So she certainly puts herself in the conversation.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say I feel guilty for not mentioning the great Laura Muir as part of that conversation, because even though she hasn't been firing at fully 100%, for an athlete like Laura Muir, if she just stays healthy for the next month, you just know she's going to show up in that hunt for the certainly the silver and bronze in Budapest as well.
That's it. Laura knows what she's doing. She's a proven championship performer. We go over to the women's 8, like Keely Hodgkinson as well. 2 medals in the last 2 global championships, European champion, world lead. But I was really impressed with Gemma Reekie on Sunday in London. yeah, she won beating a very good field, and it was fast as well. It wasn't just a win; it was a fast win. She's third on the world leading list now, and yeah, I think again, don't so much want to talk about all those favourites. We know who those are for medals. That Gemma, that was a real resurgence. Kind of, that's the best I think she's run probably since Tokyo, where she came fourth. So you kind of think that's another person that should be putting themselves in a medal conversation.
For sure, yeah. And I think the 800 as well, it's probably everyone looks to Ething Mo and everyone's waiting for her. But, I think with Keely or Ething Mo, if they don't show up at 100%, then what happens, is the gold medal up for grabs? And there has been at
Yeah,
times question marks over both of them at times. But, and then I suppose they can race in such a way that creates carnage for everyone else. And some of the athletes we've seen trying to go with Ething Mo over the years have, trying to get rich or die trying, have died trying. So it can really open up, I think, in the 800 meters, especially probably on the men's side, but I think also on the women's, whereby if you're in that 8-woman final, you definitely have a chance of getting on that podium.
yeah, for sure. And the other endurance thing for me was Mo Katir, the Spaniard, running a new European record. It's kind of tricky because he's only seventh on the world list. I didn't think, maybe there were a few nations that have got more than 3 athletes there, but it to break Jakob Ingebrigtsen's European record at this stage in the season, I think that puts him in the conversation for a medal.
He does. And I think especially as a 1500 meter medalist already, I think anytime you see those kind of athletes with the 5000 meter strength moving up, because I think so often we've looked at those championships over the years, whether it was Mo Farah or Jakob, who had the kind of best finishing speed and they're in the 5K, and you kind of want, whether it's Ugandans, Kenyans, or Ethiopians who have the best times, but maybe not the best kicks sometimes, to just push it along early and make them hurt and trying. But inevitably, it tends to turn into like a 12:50 to like 13:10 race. There's never a really, really hard, fast 5K anymore. And I think, assuming we're going to get another one of those races in Budapest, like a 12:55 or 13:05 kind of race, then you have to say Mo Katir is going to be exceptionally dangerous. But I also kind of wonder, when I saw that record was broken, Jakob is sitting back looking at that going, yeah, don't worry, buddy, that's just on loan. I'll come out the next 5K and that will be on his watch list at 12:45 to get that back immediately.
Oh, for sure, he's on a record rampage. But it's one of we don't even know which event Katir is going to choose. But I think that performance puts him a medal. That improves his chances of a medal in the 15 and opens up the chances for a medal in in the 5K as well. All right, field. I'm going to start with a bit of a curveball and say Anita Vladarchik adding 3 meters to her season's best. That's really encouraging for me. She's still a bit down the list. There's a lot of Americans ahead of her. If you take those down to just 3, I think she could go in ranked 5th. And that, for me, at this stage in the season, after a really bad injury last year, just getting going, that's enough for me to think that the Polish woman could get another hammer medal, which would be ridiculous.
She is one of the most underappreciated. I won't say unappreciated, because the people who really follow it know what a god and goddess that Anita Vladarchik is. But she is one of the global stars of our sport, and her record is absolutely out of this world for winning titles. And yeah, I think it was a big loss not to have her at her best over the last year. But she's been creeping slowly back up through those kind of 70-meter throws, and she's going to bring her best because she's just so experienced as well. So what a comeback tale that would be after what happened to her last year, to be back on a podium, if it could happen in Budapest.
So I think she's one of the lowest ranked athletes I've chosen, but like I say, it's that progression, that trajectory. Right. Anything else in the field that you thought was super exciting this week?
Larissa Yapikino, I think in London or in Monaco. That was super impressive as well to see her back on top again. She just, she's young, she's so talented, and she's just going from strength to strength. And that women's long jump must be one of the hardest events to call in at the World Championships. So yeah, but she has really thrown herself into the conversation. So that was great to see, I think.
And I think I read something today. Mahambo's pulled out for the rest of the season. Malika Mahambo, Germany's hurt a quad or something like that. This is just something I saw on social media, so I don't know if it's true. But it's like Yapikino, she's not jumping that far, but she just keeps winning. And if this was endurance running, you'd say, well, yeah, that converts to a medal because you got to be able to win. And in a field event, I kind of feel like, if your ceiling's she's not gone over 7 meters outdoors, I don't think this season. And it's sort of, you could say, if you haven't done the 720, that you haven't hit those world leading marks, you're not capable of winning. But time and time again. Yeah, it was a win in Florence, a win in Stockholm, a win in Monaco. 3 Diamond League wins at her age. You can't ignore that.
For sure. She's a contender.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to go next up. Vilma Murto winning in London. Another athlete that's just got better with every competition. And to beat, I want to say pretty much everyone was that. Well, she beat Katie Moon. Katie Moon's the big one, reigning Olympic champion, reigning world champion from America. So for the Finnish athlete, Vilma Murto, to beat her, that makes me excited that she could get a medal at the world champs. I think she was 6th in Eugene, but then went on to win the European champs and a national record, bounced onto indoors, did the same thing. I think that was a really nice sort of pinnacle of her. I don't know if she's competing again before Budapest, but that was a really nice performance at this stage.
And I suppose while we're on the pole vault, could it possibly happen? Could Mondo possibly lose the world title so we have a non-European atop the podium? Because do you think that inspired a bit of hope across his rivals, or was it just a very temporary blip that we'll all very quickly forget about?
Oh, and it's one of those things because it's like Jake Whiteman beating Jakob Ingebrigtsen. You're like, whoa, like he's vulnerable. We didn't think this was possible.
He's human.
And, he is human. It was his first defeat since September last year. I think. Yeah, I was looking back through it. He seems to lose once a year, and so that might be it. The chance is gone. But he was 4th as well, and you don't want to catastrophize it. But you're like, that's so unusual. So I think that is potentially interesting. No, I still wouldn't bet against him.
I do think it's thrown a bit of excitement into it though, because I think we got so used to Mondo, and I know, like you said, he does tend to have a blip once a year, but I think we got so used to him being almost robotic with those 6'10" clearances that it's good to kind of just be reminded that he is actually human and he can have a bad day like the rest of us, and I think it'll make that men's pole vault all the more exciting as a result.
It just makes everyone wake up and think, they'll be waking up in the World Championships in Budapest going, he is beatable. I'm not just here for a silver. There is a chance for gold, and I think that's an important mindset for the rest of the field. We'll see. We'd like him to win. We'd like a European to win,
for sure.
I think that was pretty much all my action. Did you see anything else field wise or anything else I've missed?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Cool. All right. Well, I think it's been a really, really brilliant week to get all our athletes set up for Budapest. And thanks very much for doing a whistle-stop tour through what we've seen. And you'll be delighted, Ciara Mageean, your pick to look for. I have done an interview with her this week as well, so we're going to put that in this episode. But thanks for now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thanks very much.
Ciara Mageean, an Irish 1500 and 800 metre runner. Thank you very much for giving up your time to speak to us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You've got accolades coming out of your eyeballs, and we're going to work our way through those. But first, can we start off just we're asking every guest, how did you get into athletics in the first place?
I'll try not to make my conversation too long. I started athletics really in secondary school, but my first taste of racing would have been in primary school, like most kids doing sports day. Then my primary school had 2 cross-country races that I was able to run, but they were all pretty low-key. One of the teachers brought us out, and we did a couple of laps of the car park, and then we headed up to a cross-country race in Newtonards. And then it wasn't until I went to secondary school that my PE teacher probably spotted that I was just so competitive whenever it came to PE, and also clearly had an engine. So she asked did I want to do cross country in secondary school, and I jumped at the chance to miss some class, to be perfectly honest. So me and my friend Nicola headed off to the cross country. And it wasn't really until maybe like 3rd year, I think, that I probably showed my talents in cross country. I was probably coming up through coming 40 something, 30 something. Then I think it was in 3rd year that I won the districts, got through to the Ulsters and progressed from there. And then thanks to that, was spotted and brought on to Athletics Northern Ireland Talent Academy type thing. And actually in primary school, I was spotted and brought to a Mary Peters Trust, little talent ID thing. So it's quite interesting that clearly they had spotted something, but I hadn't really taken a normal path into an athletics club. It was all really thanks to school teachers spotting that I had a talent and putting me forward. And then whenever my PE teacher in school, Miss McCambridge, asked did I want to try actual track instead of just cross country, well, I suppose that's the moment I found found my real talent in life. So I'm extremely grateful to all of those teachers and the people who were spotting the youngsters coming through, because thanks to them, I began my path on athletics, and my junior one was a pretty good one.
I was going to say you really good success at a young age. Under 18 silver on world level, silvers at World Under 20 and European Under 20. Yeah, but that's sort of when you realised you could be a really, really good athlete.
Yeah, I can always remember whenever I got into athletics. So I grew up playing a sport called camogie, which is an Irish sport. And whenever I started doing athletics, got to go to different countries for the first time. I actually had my very first passport thanks to going to an athletics meet. I think I was only flying like across the water over to England, but that was still a big trip for me. And like getting to go to the likes of UK school games. My very first Irish Fest would have been like a schools international cross country. So like at those points, you're kind of like, oh, I'm getting to run for my country. This is pretty cool. This is really special. And yeah, those little moments where I started to medal and compete, like to be honest, coming over to the UK and competing against the top British athletes and placing quite well at UK school games probably had people being a bit like, oh, here she's pretty good, because I was racing against all of the top Brits. Whenever I think back, I was like, I can remember racing like the likes of Kate Avery and Louise Small. I think myself and Laura Whiteman, like competed the whole way through. So there was a whole load of different athletes that I was coming toe to toe with that were top Brits. So I think for me in Ireland, it was always the measure against the top Brits that was like, here, could you be good? But yeah, going and medaling at European Youth Olympics, at European Juniors, and then really taking a medal home at World Juniors was pretty big, because that was a big deal for Ireland as well. And to go out and compete against the world and come second was fairly special. So yeah, I suppose those moments were the times whenever I was like, this could be my future, and I want to continue racing for Ireland and trying to bring medals home. And yeah, as a junior, I probably thought that it was going to continue on that path, that I would keep going to under 23 and senior, continuing to win all those medals. Unfortunately, it's never really a smooth path. And for me, it certainly wasn't. But yeah, I was fairly lucky and really happy with that underage career.
Yeah, you did struggle, and I mean that in a polite way. Kind of, yeah. When you
Oh,
look at that trajectory, yeah, there were a few years where you didn't progress, as sort of those age group results would indicate, which is really common with loads of athletes. But I think there must have been a lot of pressure and emotion around that when you've done so well, and then you're struggling to match that.
yeah, definitely, because the expectation was that I was going to be, and many people dubbed the next Sonia O'Sullivan. And I've always said that I was really honoured to have that comparisons, to be spoken off in the same breath as Sonia is just absolutely fantastic. And all the pressure really came from me. But there was always this thing that like you're going to be a fantastic athlete. And I wanted it so badly myself. So then finishing my underage career, like coming out of juniors and heading to university, but carrying an injury into uni was really tough. I actually didn't run a step as an under 23, really. I didn't compete for Ireland as an under 23. So that's quite a big jump. Like it wasn't just a missing a year. I actually didn't race as an under 23. So that was fairly tough. And those years at university were pretty tough. I'd spoken previously about like kind of my identity was really wrapped up on being around being the runner. I'm from a little small town called Portaferry, and we don't have an athletics club. We don't probably have a strong history of athletics in my hometown. And so to everybody in Portaferry, I'm the runner. And it's always said with such affection, but you internalize that identity a little. So it started to make me doubt who I was without running. And I feel very fortunate. I had a very good coach underage with Eamon Christie. And then whenever I moved to Dublin, I moved to a new coach with Jerry after a few years. And Jerry was fantastic, Jerry Kieran. And he really nurtured me as a person, and kind of gave me my identity as me, as Ciara Mageean, that my running was separate to that. And I was a fantastic athlete. But that I was also a really great girl. And he put a lot of focus, probably being a school teacher himself, on my academics. He was like, right, your studies are very important, get the head down. If I was looking really stressed around exams, he's like, you're having a rest day today, which I wasn't too happy about. But I feel very fortunate to have had a really solid kind of marker there with Jerry. But yeah, it was really tough and really rocky. And I probably look back and wonder, should I have done things slightly different whenever I was younger? Um, as you said, like most people's careers aren't smooth. And I realize now as a senior, like, listen, if you're, the girls I'm competing against, if I could find one that hasn't had a tough time, that hasn't had an injury that made them doubt, then that probably one athlete is extremely lucky. Because we all take that path. We tread a really fine line between peak performance and picking up an injury and being off that burner. So yeah, I feel quite fortunate that I stuck to the path People often were like, oh, I'm amazed that you didn't give up. Perhaps that's just the ignorance in me. It didn't occur to me to give up, but I'm glad that I didn't, because this dream to be one of the best in the world was something that I've always had, and the dream to win medals for Ireland has always been the reason why I wanted to run. Running fast was one part of it, but for me, just winning medals is like the reason why I ever competed in sport. To go out and try to have that victory, and now to be in the place where it's all coming to fruition. I feel really happy about that, because I knew that I was a talent. Hopefully that doesn't sound cocky, but I knew that there was something in me that I could be a good runner. So I'm glad that it's actually been able to be shown.
Me too, and I'm sure lots of fans. But that adversity and being forced to appreciate your Ciara this person and Ciara the athlete. Do you think that's something that maybe it would have been nicer to not learn it for a whole under 23 age group? But do you think that's actually been beneficial in the long term?
I certainly think it has. Jerry was always very wise, and he told me whenever I was going through that injury. Actually, like whenever I asked him to be my coach, I was kind of approaching that decision point of needing to have surgery on my ankle, and he was really honest. Like, even whenever I asked him to coach me, he was like, "Oh, I'm very nervous about coaching you. You're a very big talent. I'm nervous about taking that on." And I was like, "Oh." And somebody expressing that like they don't know everything, I was like, "Oh, okay." But I appreciate that hugely. And he always said that this bout of injury and the time out will give me a longer time in my sport. He always kind of referred to my like running age as opposed to my actual age. He's like, you've a very young running age, because I probably didn't get into the sport until my teens. I missed a big chunk at the early 20s. So he kept kind of reassuring me that we're in this for the long run, that the longevity is there, and that's the aim, to have a happy, healthy athletic career. So that's probably another thing. It switched it up. It switched up the idea of me just being here to compete and win medals nonstop to me enjoying the journey that I'm on. And it's something that I've still continued to learn throughout. That I actually want to be running now and running into my 30s and running into my 40s and hopefully my 50s. I always joke that I don't think I will. I'll go and take up golf. But you want to have a body that's happy and healthy and moving forward. But yeah, I'd rather if it wasn't an entire under 23 career gone to the dogs thanks to a dodgy ankle. But look, it's paying off now.
Well, just a quick side note on under 23s. How about Sophie O'Sullivan and Sarah Healy won 2 at the under 23 champs?
Absolutely amazing. I also feel like I'm feeling really fortunate to be part of like a little, like, nearly like a resurrection in Irish middle distance running. Like, the guys are running phenomenally. You look at Brian Fay, Andrew Cosco and Luke McCann, and now we've got 3 1,500 metre girls that are absolutely flying. And to watch the girls compete and to have Ireland go 1 and 2 at a major champs, like, the future of Irish athletics is bright. Never mind discussing our sprinters who are flying too with Rashida. So I feel very excited as an Irish woman sitting looking forward to the World Champs.
On for sure. You did get your career back on track, like very much so, and I think most people will probably be most aware of last year. Silver at the Commonwealth Games, silver at the European Championships, but that resurgence started earlier, didn't it? You did get your career back on track. Like, when would you say you really felt like that I can do this, I can be professional, I can be a senior?
Yeah, I suppose like it was never again that journey back from being injured on 23 to now being 31 and competing, and really coming into my peak. My first senior medal for Ireland was in 2016 at the European Champs, and I got a bronze medal there, and that was like, it was kind of like a little, like, yeah, and maybe a little I won't swear, but like a little fingers up to the people who doubted me, because at that point I probably was a has-been. People were like, if she was just a good junior and isn't going to make it as a senior, whereas that proved that I could still go out and medal. And it probably silenced some of the doubts in my own head that I could still be competitive in athletics. So that was like a little glimmer, and that was my first ever senior medal, so that was special. And Jerry really worked hard to get me back to the level that I was. And then I made the transition to move to Team New Balance Manchester, and Steve Vernon then really added another little bit of jet fuel onto that trajectory for my athletics. And I'm so grateful for Steve. I was super disappointed to see him leave, but British Athletics have a special person there. I sure hope they really appreciate that, because Steve really kind of taught me that, yeah, I could be something truly special. And whenever I joined the team, I also kind of felt like I found like my little wolf pack. Whenever I joined, there's just a fantastic bunch of athletes, a fantastic bunch of girls that are lifelong friends, and really made me feel like I belonged. I suppose for a long time I didn't really feel like I ever belonged in athletics. I kind of came from camogie background. I was just having a team around me, and it was a real individual sport. And having not come from a club, like I would go to competitions and not know people the way some of the other athletes did because they were club mates or they knew each other from underage. And that was kind of like finding my little place. So yeah, I feel like under Steve's tutorage, I moved over at the end of 2017. I started taking another step forward. But like any athlete would know, whenever you make a change, sometimes it like you have a big improvement, other times it simmers, and other times it's up and down. So I feel like, yeah, it began to go well. I had another few glimmers of really good performance. And then unfortunately for Steve, last year with my 2 silver medals was like just the very season that he had just left before. And I thankfully had Helen Clitheroe by my side, an athlete that I competed against as an underage athlete. You would have done yourself. And that was really special. My first ever female coach, which is something that's unique for me. And you know, she kind of taught me just to like take a little bit of ownership of my own career and my own thoughts towards my racing. But I said to Helen, I was like, oh, look, so much of the success of last year was Steve's coaching and really that strong base that he had given me, really working on my strengths and my weaknesses. So I feel like I'm pretty fast, have a good finish, but like I work really hard on that base of endurance work over the winter. And Steve teaching me that throughout, coming up to my very first altitude camps. I'd never been in altitude before joining the team. And so much of that was Steve's knowledge and Steve bringing me forward. So yeah, last year was truly special to win 2 medals. It was my first ever Commonwealth medal, my 3rd Commonwealth Games, and I was like, finally, I've won a medal for Northern Ireland, because I should have done it before, I felt. And so that was really special to win another medal for Ireland at the European Champs, to go to battle with Laura Muir continuously. Laura got the better of me at the 2 championships, but then to come out at the Diamond League and to go sub 4 for the very first time was really special too, because that was like the monkey on my back for a long time.
You just
looking at Sonia's Irish record, and
you're going to undersell sub 4. What can you explain the jump you went? What was the progression you managed? Yes.
You know what? You probably know better than me. I think my PB prior was 4:01. Am I correct in saying that? Was it 4 flat something?
I think so. One of the other.
Bad.
Yeah.
Hannah, I'm so bad. I don't even remember my times. I probably won't even remember my sub 4 time to the millisecond. Is it 3:56 something?
Something. I was trusting you'd remember it.
Like, yeah, I'm so bad. I'm always like, hopefully I'll better it and I don't have to remember it for too long. So yeah, it was a huge jump. I didn't just like nip sub 4. I like obliterated it. And for me, I was like, thank goodness. Like, I've been knocking on the door of it for so long. I really feel like it was something I should have done a lot sooner. But unfortunately, I picked up niggles, had, you know, going into the Olympic Games, tore my calf, stuff like that. Was just, I was like, am I going to catch a break at any point? And then, yeah, to go out in the Diamond League and run 3:56. Like, honestly, at the time, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Across the line and asked Laura what time I'd ran. And I honestly, like, sat in the room after, like, just in awe of the time, kind of wondering. Sometimes you wonder when you're training, you're like, how did I do that for so many laps? Like, how did I go lap after lap after lap that fast? So that was really special. And then to go out, you know, sheerly off that high in the Diamond League final and to come second at the Diamond League final was like, it was a mind-blowing season for me. And then something that I was like that as an athlete, you carry that on and you're like, you're either going to see that as pressure for the next year to replicate, or you're going to see it as confidence. So I've really come into this season with a little bit of the pressure of wanting to have another good season, but also the confidence of knowing that I can be up there and compete with the best athletes in the world. And I think I've shown it so far this season. It's been probably my best season to date, just with the times that I've been showing and being competitive. There's been a few races that haven't went as smoothly as I'd want, but like that's the racing season. And yeah, to run the mile then last week and to get a new Irish record over the mile, which again was a time that like I seemed to just take this jump and just blow my own mind. My agent is Ricky Sims with Pace Management and Pace Sports, and he messaged saying hello to the 5th fastest woman ever in the world over the mile. And I'm like, I don't know if I'll get to terms with that until it gets to the end of the season and I can just stop focusing on the next race, because that blows my mind. To be in the company of athletes, the 5th fastest woman ever over the mile is just it's crazy.
It is, but then it's not, because you've chipped away, you've improved year on year. It is astounding, but it's also logical to me. Yeah, that you've made that progression. Did you know what time did you think you'd run on Friday in Monaco?
To be honest with you, I wasn't sure. I thought I was in the shape to try to go for a new Irish record. The Irish record was 4:17. And I was like, I think I'm in good shape. I had a good training session the Tuesday before. And I'm not somebody who necessarily knows when they're in shape. I tend to rely on those around me to be like, that was really good. But even in that session, I finished and I was like, I feel like that was really good, because I just how I felt during it, not even the times that were posted. And then running the race, I think we were told that there was going to be a white light that was at about 4:17.14. And knowing that the British record and the Aussie record, I think, were in and around the same time as the Irish record, something like 4:17. I'm not sure. I thought, right, well, if I'm anywhere close to Laura and Jess, they're probably going for their national records. Like, yeah, I think if I stay close to these girls. So honestly, I think when I crossed the line, I hadn't noticed a white light. So I was like, was it 4:16? I thought, was it 4:16? Maybe that would be good. To be perfectly honest with you, even when I was told for 4:14, I didn't fully grasp how fast that was. I wouldn't have realised, I'm not a huge athletics buff, I wouldn't have realised like where that would put me on the all-time list. But to be honest, just going out there and racing the girls and beating Laura and Jess to the line, I was just happy with that and proud of that, because listen, they're world-class athletes. So to go out and compete and be up there, and then look, in relative terms, whenever you're looking at Faith, who's like however many seconds ahead, it makes you, I'm like, I laugh, I'm like, oh, it makes my time look pretty rubbish. But no, I was very proud of that, because Faith's in a league of her own. Like, to go and run 4:7 is just insane. So yeah, I didn't know what time it was, but I don't think I would have expected 4:14.
Oh, lovely. So I want to get a tiny bit geeky. Were you willing to share your favourite session and your least favourite session?
Oh yeah. So my favourite session, what would that be? Oh my goodness. I kind of like when it gets to the track season and it's speedy stuff. Um, just because you're kind of feeling sharp, you get your spikes on. So like a session of some fours at race pace and cutting down, and then like some fast twos after. Um, and I used to say that my least favorite sessions were like the long winter slogs, the tempos and the fartleks, like however many by a mile, up the Middlewood. And I'll be honest with you, I actually quite like them now, because for me, there's a certain amount of pressure that comes with those really good in season, kind of coming into the summer training sessions. Like, you want to nail them, you want them to go well. Whereas whenever you go into your tempos, they're actually quite nice. You're like, this is really good. Like, it's kind of relaxed. It's pretty good. Oh, I will say, Helen's fond of a session that we do here. I'm staying in Cell Arena right now, and we do like a bit of a fartlek, maybe like 3 or 4 by 5 minutes, whatever the fartlek might be for that day. Then we do some hills, like 8 by 30 second hills. And then we come down and do some flat strides too. And I'm not going to lie to you, by the time I get to the flat strides, I'm done. I'm fed up. I want them over. So that's maybe actually my least favourite session. And Helen keeps giving it to me. Maybe out of punishment. I have to I laugh, because like there's very few things that I moan about, but sometimes I'm like, oh, these flat strides are lasting forever. And I'm like, listen, this is my job. I just have to shut up and do it and stop being such a little moan. But yeah, I'd say, like, to be honest, out of all training, my least favourite thing's probably the Sunday long run. So, and I laugh, because I'd be there running with some of the marathon ones, and they really look forward to that. And I'm like, all I'm looking forward to is finishing and getting like a bacon bath and a wee can of Coke and grasshopper after going to Lady Bar. That's where my mind is for the entire long run.
Nice. So you're up at altitude training now. We've got about a month to go to World Championships. What's the next month going to look like for you?
Yeah, the next month's just going to be ticking away, just getting a couple more of those little sharp sessions done. But really, like, I feel like you get to this point and the hard work's completed. It's about getting yourself towards that championships in the best possible place. So, well rested and well recovered. Irish Champs are this coming weekend, so that'll be my last races before the Worlds. And yeah, I'm gonna be up here. I'm looking forward to just having some more mountain miles. I'm delighted to be back up in the fresh air after being in Monaco. It was a bit hot for me, so it was nice stepping off the train back into St. Moritz, and it's nice and fresh. But yeah, it's just going to be pretty low key. Just the head down, getting the work done, and head into World Champs, getting ready to get my Irish vest back on.
Nice. Is St. Moritz, can that get intense? So there are a lot of European athletes there. It's like a who's who of European running, right?
Basically, I've been here since the 5th of July, so I came out a bit earlier. And it was actually fairly quiet then. You kind of expect it just to be absolutely mad. But I think a lot of countries had their national champs that weekend. You yourselves and the British champs had it that weekend. So usually there's a lot of British athletes up. They weren't here. And then a lot of people hadn't come up just yet. Most people are racing this last month leading into World Champs. But slowly but surely, it's definitely getting busy. I was sitting by the poolside cafe today, and I have a rest day, and you just sit there and just tick off world class runners just heading on by. The track gets fairly busy, so that's always fun. But like that's really exciting, for me to be here. And I'm like, this is basically my job. I'm spending a month in the mountains in such a beautiful place. I'm sharing the track with some of the best athletes in the world, and I get to call this work. So I feel very lucky. Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on the change in the rules for World Athletics with the no time qualifiers for the 1500? How does that change your mindset going into Budapest?
The no time qualifiers. Can you explain the rules to me? Because you underestimate how little I pay attention.
Okay, no more time qualifiers, just automatic spots. So you can't be a fastest loser. I try not to use the word fast.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. What's that? And correct me, what's the thing they're bringing in for the Olympics?
Oh, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Yeah, I'm not qualified to explain that.
Yeah, so because I feel like confused between the two of them. Yeah, I find it interesting. I'm kind of like, it probably makes sense because like for all of us, is it unfair if you're in the ladder heat and you know what time you need to run? I personally always try to make sure I'm in that automatic qualification spot just because I'm like, I just don't want to leave it to chance. If you need to be in the top 3 or the top 4, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm there. So like, I'm wondering, this will be interesting to see. I'm wondering if it's going to make any huge difference for the athletes, because we usually are all battling to be in that automatic spot. So the athletes are all going to probably go into it with the exact same mentality, just with that automatic spot. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if you were one of the athletes that loses out based on that. Like you could be running faster than somebody did in another heat and not make it through. Yeah, that'll be tough, because we all know there's some of the heats that'll go out super fast and others that won't. And then therefore there'll be athletes that'll run much faster time and not make it in. Yeah, it's interesting. I find that interesting, and I'm completely like dumbstruck by what's going to happen at the Olympics. I don't know how that's going to work, because that's a whole extra race for some people. I'm like, I'm not going to lie, I don't think that's great. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. For me, it's like you just have to be in the automatic spot. There's no questions about it. Just get it done.
Yeah, we'll analyze after. We'll do a debrief afterwards.
Yeah,
and try and figure out.
I'd like to sit and have a chat with you, because I feel like, do you know, whenever I like haven't given it too much thought, and I'm like, it'd be very good to sit and chat to somebody about like, what do you think? Because I feel like you're in a position now where you're observing athletics an awful lot more than I necessarily am. I feel like I've got my head on. I'm just going to go to race. I'm very selfishly just focused on me, whereas you can see the consequence of these at championships. So I'd like to know. I'll sit down and have a drink with you in Budapest.
Okay, plan that.
Yeah.
But that's 2023. If we look ahead, just a short look ahead at next year, we're back to a busy summer, multiple championships in one year. The European Championships in Rome are in June, and then you've got the Olympics coming up in July. Is that something, do you think you could target both, or you have to choose and focus on one?
Yeah, it's always really hard. It's the same last year. Looking at 3 major championships, we had Worlds, Commonwealths, and European champs. And myself and Steve sat down the year prior, probably even like longer than that, to discuss what I would do in the previous season. And it was really tough, because I knew that he was like, what's your focus? And I was like, I really want to medal. And I was like, and I have a very good chance of medaling at Commonwealths and European champs. That's probably my highest medal hopes. But to pass up a world champs was a very tough decision to make last year. But I think it was the right one for me. Sometimes you kind of want to mix up the order. So like, if you had Olympics first and European champs second, then I'd be like, that would be perfect. It would be the same if Worlds was at the end of the three races last year. I would have been delighted, because I would have just carried on. Because really my focus was Europeans and Commonwealths because I really felt I wanted a medal. And having never medalled for Northern Ireland, that was a big focus. So yeah, I haven't actually thought too far beyond this summer. It's certainly something I'm going to have to talk to Helen about. Having raced 2 championships last year and raced well at both, and then also continued to run well at the Diamond League events after, I feel like now it's not something that I would find is not doable. But yeah, it's an Olympic Games, so there's going to be some tough decisions to make. I'm not sure what my decision will be, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. And final question, I just want to ask, what do you like to do outside of athletics? What helps you relax? What's a cool hobby?
I feel like a little old lady. I really love gardening. I have an allotment, which God, it's been left a bit wayward at the moment because I've been traveling so much this summer. It's really tough to keep on top of your allotment whenever you're traveling. My my plants are being ate, the weeds are taking over. But yeah, I really enjoy just having my hands in the dirt. I love growing things in my back garden. I have like a little worm hotel in the garden where I make my own like compost basically, and like worm tea to fertilize my potted plants. So yeah, I really enjoy that, and then also just spending time with my friends and my family. I don't get an awful lot of time all summer to do that, so it's something I enjoy over the winter, to take a little trip home to Portaferry, spend some time there, have my siblings over, and chill with my friends from the team. So it's yeah, I'd say my biggest hobby is that. I would definitely love to have a dog. That's something that is in the future. So unfortunately, because I travel so much, I feel like I have to be responsible and not get one just yet. But it was a deal that Thomas made with me. If I ran a new Irish record over the 1500, that we'd get a dog. Now I've done it for the mile as well. So God love poor Thomas. This promise has been on the cards for a while. We just need to get our own house before we do so.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you very much, Ciara. Like huge good luck for Budapest. From a European perspective, having you up there so high up in the Diamond Leagues, running such fast times is super exciting. Yeah, so wish you all the best for that.
Thanks so much, Hannah. Thank you.
Big thanks to Cathal and Ciara again for their time. I hope you enjoyed both the interviews, and don't forget to keep an eye out for the Raiffeisen Open, that's on Wednesday night, and the True Athletes Classic on Saturday nights. Both will be streamed with English commentary through the European athletics platforms. Thanks for joining us.